All right, everyone. Get ready for a deep dive today into a real internet rabbit hole.
Oh, this sounds fun.
This is the story of John Titor.
Okay.
Now, John Titor was a supposed time traveler.
Supposed time traveler.
Yeah, he was from 2036.
Wow.
He popped up online in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And he was claiming he needed to go back and retrieve an IBM 5100 computer from 1975.
Like go back to 1975 from the early 2000s.
Yeah.
To get a computer.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've got time travel, we've got retro tech, we've got dystopian future.
Okay, I'm already hooked.
It's a story that really captures the imagination.
Yeah, it really does.
And it goes even deeper than that.
Oh.
It's not just some random forum post. Like you said, this is a guy who went into a lot of detail.
Oh, okay.
Not just about his mission, this supposed mission,
Right.
but about the future he came from.
What kind of details are we talking about here?
Like I was saying, it wasn't just, flying cars and hoverboards. It was a lot more than that.
Okay.
He was talking about a world ravaged by war and just, social upheaval.
Okay.
It was a future where technology was both the problem and the solution. It's kind of eerie, when you think about some of his predictions, like the rise of civil unrest and even this global shift toward self-sufficiency.
Yeah, that is eerie.
They feel strangely relevant today.
Absolutely.
Don't you think?
Yeah, it makes you wonder, was he just a really good storyteller?
Right.
Or was he tapping into some kind of genuine anxieties that were already brewing in society?
Yeah.
Back then, fears that have only become, more prominent now.
Right.
But before we get too deep into all that, let's rewind a little bit. Let's talk about Titor, his arrival, and why he supposedly traveled back in time.
Okay, so picture this. It's November 2000.
Okay.
The internet is still this kind of relatively new frontier. And suddenly this guy comes out of nowhere claiming to be from the year 2036.
From 2036.
Yeah. And he just starts posting on all these, online forums.
Okay.
He introduces himself as John Titor.
John Titor.
John Titor, yeah.
Okay.
And he says he's a soldier.
A soldier.
Sent back on a mission that's critical to the survival of his timeline.
His timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, when you think about a time traveler, you think they'd be after some, top secret tech or something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
But Titor's target was something a little different.
What was it?
It was this seemingly ordinary IBM 5100 computer model from the 1970s.
So not top secret tech.
No, not necessarily.
It's an old computer.
An old computer. But he claimed it held the key to averting this major technological crisis in his time.
Oh, wow.
And here's where things get even weirder.
Okay, weirder than a time traveler going after a 1970s computer.
Yeah, a lot weirder.
Okay.
Because he wasn't just making stuff up.
Oh.
He specifically mentioned this thing about the IBM 5100.
What about it?
That it had this hidden capability to debug older IBM mainframe systems.
Right.
This wasn't publicly known at the time.
Okay.
And it was actually later confirmed by one of the IBM 5100's engineers.
What? No way.
Yeah.
You confirmed it.
A guy named Bob Dubke.
Bob Dubke.
Bob Dubke, yeah.
So, how did Titor know this?
Right.
Was he just making a lucky guess, or did he actually have inside knowledge from the future?
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes this so compelling.
Chilling almost.
How could he possibly know that unless he was actually from a time where this information was just common knowledge?
Right.
But, I mean, let's not jump to conclusions just yet.
Okay, yeah, good point.
Before we go build a time machine in our garage.
Well, I already started gathering parts, but...
Let's unpack this a little bit.
Okay.
What did Titor have to say about this looming technological catastrophe?
Right.
This infamous year 2038 problem that he was trying to prevent.
The year 2038 problem.
The year 2038 problem, yeah.
And why was he going back to 1975 to fix it?
Well, I'm sure some of you listening remember the Y2K scare.
Yeah, definitely.
But this was potentially way worse.
Way worse than Y2K.
Yeah, way worse.
Okay, so what was it?
Imagine a world where computer systems worldwide, they just start malfunctioning,
Right.
causing chaos in everything.
Oh, wow.
From banking and transportation, communication, power grids, you name it.
That sounds like a disaster.
That's what the year 2038 problem threatened to do.
Wow.
It all had to do with this limitation in how computers store time information.
Right.
Using a 32-bit system.
32-bit.
A 32-bit, yeah.
Okay.
When the clock ticked over to January 19, 2038, those systems would essentially reset to zero.
Oh, wow.
And that could trigger a massive system crash.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, Titor was basically saying, hey, heads up, your fancy computers are going to implode in a few decades.
Right.
Unless you get this specific vintage IBM model that can fix it.
So he was warning people.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine the kind of foresight, even the desperation that would drive somebody to time travel for a computer?
I guess if you knew the world was going to end,
Right.
you'd do whatever it took to stop it.
It really makes you think about how much we rely on technology, even back then.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
Whether or not you buy into the whole time travel thing.
Yeah.
Titor's story really does highlight our dependence on technology.
Absolutely.
And the potential consequences of that reliance.
Yeah.
It's like he was a tech Cassandra warning about a future where our own creations could turn against us.
Yeah, I like that. A tech Cassandra.
Okay, so we've got this mysterious time traveler, we've got this vintage computer with a secret ability, and we've got a global tech meltdown on the horizon.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack.
It really is.
So where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? Yeah, what else did Titor have to say about the future?
Yeah, I mean, what did he say about the future beyond this computer problem?
Well, that's where things take a bit of a darker turn.
Oh, no.
His predictions went beyond just, technological issues. He also had a lot to say about social and political upheaval.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, Titor's infamous predictions. Let's dive into those next.
All right, let's do it. So Titor claimed that the U.S. was headed for another civil war.
Another civil war.
Yeah, he said it would be triggered by, growing political and social divisions.
Mm-hmm.
He even pinpointed the start date somewhere between 2004 and 2005.
Wow, 2004 to 2005.
Yeah.
It's chilling how that prediction, made over 20 years ago, echoes some of the, the polarization and unrest we've seen, especially in recent years.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you wonder if he was picking up on some underlying societal tensions, right?
Yeah.
That were already simmering back then.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about, internal conflict.
Mm-hmm.
He also believed that this civil war would eventually escalate into World War III.
World War III.
Yeah, he said it would be triggered by, global tensions.
Okay.
And ultimately lead to nuclear attacks in 2015.
Okay, that's a pretty bleak outlook. Thankfully, those specific predictions didn't come to pass.
Yeah, at least not in the way that he described them.
Right, but I think what's really striking is how his vision of the future really tapped into these very real anxieties about, social collapse, political instability, the threat of global conflict, all of that.
I think you're right.
It's almost as if he was holding up this, distorted mirror to society,
Yeah.
reflecting back these deep-seated fears that were already present, even if people weren't really talking about them as much back then.
Absolutely.
So we've got a time traveler, a vintage computer, predictions of war and societal collapse.
Right.
It sounds like we're, describing the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster here.
It really does.
But before we get too carried away with all the sci-fi elements,
Yeah.
let's take a step back
Okay.
and consider the evidence.
The evidence.
Or maybe the lack thereof.
Right. Was there any actual proof?
Did Titor offer any proof to back up his claims?
Yeah.
Or was this all just an elaborate hoax?
Right. That's the million-dollar question.
It is. It is.
Titor's story is fascinating, but when you start to dig deeper, you realize there's not a lot of concrete evidence to actually support these claims.
Yeah. That's what always gets me.
With that.
If you're a time traveler from a dystopian future, wouldn't you come with, more than just stories?
Yeah, you think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Pictures, artifacts, something tangible.
For sure.
But all we really have are these online posts.
Right.
Which, as we know, can be easily fabricated.
Exactly. And as more people started investigating, some inconsistencies in his timeline and details started to surface, which, raised some red flags.
For sure.
For a lot of the skeptics out there.
Okay, so let's talk about the skeptics.
Okay.
What are some of the main arguments against Titor's story?
Well, one of the biggest points of contention is that, a lot of his predictions, like the Civil War and World War III, they just didn't happen.
Right.
Like he described. Some people argue that that's proof enough that he was a hoax.
Okay.
Others suggest that maybe his presence in our timeline, it somehow altered the course of events.
Oh, interesting.
And prevented those outcomes.
Okay.
It's all very speculative, of course.
Right, and that's where the whole many worlds interpretation comes in, right?
Yeah, the many worlds interpretation.
That was Titor's explanation for how time travel works.
Right.
And why his predictions might not be set in stone.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling stuff, but I'll be honest, I'm still not entirely sure I understand it.
Well, it is a very complex concept.
Yeah.
But essentially, the many worlds interpretation suggests that for every decision that's made, a new timeline branches off,
Okay.
creating a separate universe where that alternate choice plays out.
Okay.
Imagine it like a tree with, like, infinite branches,
Okay.
each one representing a different possible reality.
Okay, I think I'm starting to visualize it.
Yeah.
So Titor was basically saying that he's from one of those branches. And by traveling to our timeline, he potentially created a new branch,
Right.
which could have altered the course of events.
Exactly. It's a mind-bending idea.
Yeah, it really is.
But it does provide a framework for understanding how time travel might be possible without creating paradoxes.
Okay.
And it also explains why Titor believed that even if he was from the future, his predictions might not come true in our specific reality.
So it's like he was hedging his bets,
Yeah, kind of.
saying, hey, this is what happened in my timeline, but who knows what will happen here.
Exactly.
I guess that makes it a bit harder to debunk his story, even if his predictions don't match up perfectly.
That's one of the things that makes this whole story so intriguing.
Right.
It's shrouded in, like, just enough ambiguity and theoretical physics to keep people debating for years to come.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's get back to those skeptics for a minute.
Okay.
Because I remember reading about some internet sleuths
Oh, yeah.
who did some serious digging into Titor's online presence.
What'd they find?
Well, they were able to trace his posts back to an IP address in Florida.
Florida. Not exactly the futuristic headquarters you would expect from a time traveler.
Not quite.
So maybe just some tech-savvy prankster operating out of their basement.
Well, it gets a little more complicated than that.
Ew.
See, the address was linked to this company called the Titor Foundation.
The Titor Foundation?
The Titor Foundation, yeah. And get this.
What?
They later copyrighted Titor's story.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
They copyrighted a time traveler's tale.
They did.
That's a little suspicious, don't you think?
It definitely adds fuel to the hoax theory.
Right.
Some people believe that the whole John Titor saga was an elaborate fabrication,
Okay.
potentially orchestrated by this company.
Maybe as like a marketing ploy?
Possibly.
Or a viral campaign?
Could be.
Or even just like a creative writing project that just got way out of hand.
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure what their motives might have been, but the fact that they copyrighted the story definitely suggests there was some financial or strategic interest involved.
Yeah. Okay, so are we leaning towards Titor being a hoax then?
Well, it is tempting to just dismiss it all as a clever fabrication.
Yeah.
Especially given the lack of concrete evidence and the inconsistencies.
Right.
But there's a part of me that is still captivated by the mystery.
I get that.
Like the IBM 5100 detail.
Yeah.
His understanding of these like complex scientific concepts.
Yeah.
The way he wove together fact and fiction, it's really a masterfully crafted narrative.
It is.
Even if it is ultimately a work of fiction.
I get that. There's something about the story that just kind of sticks with you, even if you're skeptical.
It does.
It makes you question everything you thought you knew about time and reality and the limits of, human ingenuity.
That's the power of a good story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It can make you think differently, challenge your assumptions,
and
even spark a sense of wonder. And in a world that often feels predictable and mundane,
right.
I think a little bit of mystery can be a welcome escape.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've explored the evidence, the skepticism, the mind-bending theories.
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
But regardless of whether Titor was a genuine time traveler or a masterful storyteller, there's no denying that his story has had a lasting impact.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been over 2 decades since he disappeared from the internet.
Yeah.
And yet his name still pops up on forums and in documentaries and even in popular culture.
It does.
Why do you think that is?
I think it speaks to our enduring fascination with time travel.
Okay.
The idea that we could, break free from the constraints of linear time.
Yeah.
Explore different realities.
Right.
Maybe even rewrite our past or a glimpse into the future.
It's a powerful idea.
It is. It's a concept that's captivated humanity for centuries.
Yeah.
And I think Titor's story gave it this, like, modern, internet-fueled twist.
Right. And it wasn't just about time travel, was it?
No, it wasn't.
His story also tapped into these deeper anxieties about technology, about social unrest, the fragility of our civilization.
Absolutely. I think that's a big part of why his story resonated with so many people.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't believe in the time travel aspect.
Yeah.
He articulated those anxieties in a way that felt relatable,
Yeah.
and unsettling.
Right.
He gave a voice to these kind of unspoken fears about the future.
Okay, but let's not forget that Titor eventually disappeared from the online world,
Oh, that's right.
leaving behind more questions than answers.
He did. In March of 2001, he announced his departure.
2001.
Yeah, he claimed that he was returning to 2036.
Okay.
He left behind a few, cryptic messages, but after that, he went silent.
Just like that, vanished into the digital ether.
It's true.
It almost adds to the mystique, doesn't it?
It does.
Like he was a ghost in the machine.
Yeah.
This, fleeting visitor from another time, leaving behind these ripples that are still felt today.
And even though he's gone,
Mm-hmm.
his story continues to inspire,
Yeah.
and intrigue.
And intrigue, and his legacy lives on.
It does.
Not just in online forums,
Right.
but in the countless creative works that he's inspired. Yes, the ripple effect of Titor's tale on pop culture.
Exactly.
That's a whole other rabbit hole we could explore. Yeah, it's amazing how a story that, that started on some obscure online forum could actually work its way into, books and movies and even, video games and anime.
Yeah, it really is.
What are some, specific examples of Titor's influence on pop culture?
Well, one of the most notable examples is this Japanese anime series called Steins.
Steins. Yeah.
I've heard of that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cult classic, right?
It is. It's gained a huge following.
Okay.
For its complex plot, its intriguing characters,
Right.
and its thought-provoking, exploration of time travel paradoxes.
Okay.
And it's heavily inspired by the John Titor story.
It borrows elements like the IBM 5100,
Okay.
the concept of world lines,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea that even small actions can have these huge consequences on the future.
So Titor's story isn't just confined to, these dusty internet archives.
Right.
It's actually shaping these creative works that people are enjoying, a whole new generation is enjoying.
That's true.
It makes you wonder, do the creators of these works, do they believe Titor's story?
Right.
Or are they just drawn to the narrative potential of time travel and all the questions that it raises?
That's a great question, and I think it's probably a bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, on the one hand, time travel is, it's this classic science fiction trope that's always been popular. It allows us to, explore different possibilities and challenge our understanding of reality, grapple with these ethical dilemmas.
Yeah.
But I think Titor's story, it added this extra layer of intrigue.
Okay.
Because it blurred the lines between, fiction and reality. He presented it as this true account, which made it all the more captivating, even if you were skeptical.
It's like he planted this seed of doubt.
Yeah.
Like this what if.
Right.
That just lingers in the back of your mind.
Totally.
And that seed has clearly sprouted into, a whole garden of creative interpretations.
Exactly. And it's not just Steins Gate either.
Okay.
Titor's story has been referenced in countless other works, from novels to films to video games, music, you name it.
Wow.
It's become a part of our collective cultural vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's kind of like modern myth
Right.
that continues to inspire and intrigue.
So even if John Titor was just, a figment of somebody's imagination, he's had a very real impact on our culture.
I think so.
He's given us this new lens through which to view, time travel and technology and the choices that we make that shape our future.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful takeaway.
Yeah, dude.
Regardless of whether you believe his story or not, Titor's legacy really does remind us that the future isn't predetermined.
Right.
It's this tapestry woven from countless threads of decisions and actions.
Yeah.
And even unforeseen events.
Unforeseen events for sure.
And even the smallest choices can have these ripple effects that extend, far beyond our immediate understanding.
It's like the butterfly effect, but on a temporal scale.
Exactly.
One person, one computer, one journey through time could potentially alter the entire course of history.
It's a humbling thought.
It is.
And it makes you realize how much power we actually have
Yeah.
individually and collectively
Yeah.
to shape the future.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the, the enigmatic world of John Titor, what's the final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the John Titor story, regardless of its, veracity,
Right.
it invites us to engage in this thought experiment. It asks us to consider, all the possibilities, to challenge our assumptions.
Yeah.
And to really ponder the implications of time travel,
right?
Both, the fantastical and the philosophical.
Okay.
It's a story that sparks our curiosity.
Yeah.
It ignites our imagination.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that the future is not set in stone.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It encourages us to think critically, to question what we know,
right,
and to approach the unknown with a sense of wonder and a healthy dose of skepticism.
Absolutely.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of time and the enduring enigma of John Titor.
Until next time.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
And keep those minds open.
To the infinite possibilities
that lie ahead.